So I want to talk about how riding schools can literally work with anyone and three different potential clients and what you can learn from First Republic Bank's recent failure. They got acquired by JP Morgan. Acquired, is an interesting word because there was a, somewhat of a government deal. But listen, basically the failure of First Republic Bank, in my opinion, was in large part due to the fact that they really were laser focused on the ultra wealthy clientele. Their book of business was heavily concentrated with ultra high net worth and the ultra wealthy clients. So why was that a bad move, right? The banks that have, in my opinion, a few extra scoops of middle of the road customers are much healthier than First Republic Bank, who had an extra large scoop of high net worth. And that's counterintuitive maybe for some business owners, but it's absolutely on point with what I teach. So I come across, it's the mid-market that makes riding schools healthy, in my opinion. So you definitely find a lot of riding schools that want to focus on the elite, the people that are going to be able to buy 3 6-figure horses for their kids, put them all in full training, and take them all to a show once a month. You find somebody like that, and that's all you want is customers like that. And I get that. Now, if I can convince that same riding instructor to have 2 or 3 scoops of mid-market on top of that, what does that mean? It might mean that you have a separate arena with riding instructors that work for you that teach between 40 to 100 lessons a week on lesson horses, and the customers pay between $300 to $1,000 a month, right? $300 to $1,000 a month out the door might be mid-market riding school clients, right? Because that client that spends 6 figures on a horse, puts 3 horses in full training, right? They might be spending 20 grand a month and might have spent 300,000 to get in the door. That's the top tier, right? So if I can convince, I either come across 2 things a lot of times. I come across people who they only want that top tier client. And I'm like, listen, to make your business healthy, because a lot of riding instructors have gone the way of First Republic, focusing on that client, and it makes their business unhealthy. Well, why? Part of the same reason that First Republic Bank went out of business. They gave the ultra high net worth people really good deals, right? They gave them these incredible interest-only loans where they didn't pay any principal for 10 years. And it's sort of like the same way the riding instructors, they want these high net worth people so bad, they end up making bad deals and they get kind of run ragged and then they leave, right? So the high tier riding instructor, if they can add a few scoops of mid-tier clients, it's going to make it really healthy. Now, I also come across riding schools who want to do low income, right? Probably because that's what they're always like, well, I grew up and, I couldn't afford it. So I want to create a program where kids like me can afford it. Like a lot of times it's like you're trying to rescue, it's like you need therapy, right? Because you're trying to rescue a younger version of yourself to the detriment of your own family maybe, right? But you can't see that because it's hard to see yourself. So if I can convince them to go mid-tier and raise their prices, and a lot of times their existing clients can pay it, they just don't know it. Now, if you truly want to do low income, then you have to do it like my friends Christian and Macrell Bayer, who are the founders of Global Equestrian. And what they did was they secured a donor who put a lot of money into a separate, foundation and into a special bank account. And they teach low income people how to ride horses really well. Now it's free to the low income people, and Christian and Macrell, they're paid, fairly. They're paid pretty well from the foundation, right? So that's the way to do low income. Now, if you're doing like a few scoops of mid-tier and then you have a few scoops of high tier, that's ideal. That's healthy. So that's the proper way to do the business as a whole, and that's the proper way to do low income. But what people do is they finance the low income, right? They charge, the lessons are so cheap that actually the riding instructor doesn't make any money, and they work all week. And the kids, they don't really appreciate, they don't really see what's going on, that they're paying basically, less than it costs to, produce the lesson, right? Like, there's a cost to produce a lesson in terms of, if it's a lesson on lesson horse, right? You got to acquire the lesson horse, you got to put shoes on them, you got to pay their vet bills, you got to feed them and home them, and the cost of all that, like the cost that you charge the client needs to include all that and then some for yourself. So that's why we say get a few scoops, and by a few scoops I mean 40 to 100 lessons a week. Charge at least $300 a month per lesson per week. So if you have 80 lessons a week, right, with lesson on lesson horses, and most people say, and these can be 30-minute lessons, right? So 30-minute lessons, if you're doing 80 of them, that's only 40 hours a week of work. So you get 6 lesson horses that do 40 hours a week total, right? That's less than 10 hours a week of work. Most people historically, if you really look at what a working horse had to do in history between fight wars and plow the fields, if you said, listen, you need to do like 7 hours a week of walk trot lessons, historically, the grandfathers of these horses are laughing to all the people out there that are like, stop abusing these lesson horses, when we're saying 7 hours a week. And furthermore, the other thing we're saying is we close 6 weeks a year. So they get 6 weeks of vacation, a lot of these lesson horses. And then furthermore, what we're saying is that at the end of every 12 to 24 month period, you should sell those lesson horses. They should only be a lesson horse for a year or 2 years. So it's not, I really fight back on people that say that it's some sort of abuse of the lesson horse. It's not. So anyways, that's some thoughts today and what you can learn from First Republic Bank's recent failure.